Okay. Are we on? Hello, my name is Hadassah Esther Auerbach, and I am Mrs. Brown's daughter. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction. My mother and her parents were on the train together with a family of a mother and a father and two young boys. I think one was about 9 and one was 11 or 7 and 9.
Yeah, 11,
and they
yeah.
were originally from Dusseldorf. And I think they also had come from Vienna. No, not from Vienna.
Belgium.
And then they were on the
Belgium, but
train
they're
from
from
Belgium.
Belgium.
They were fleeing to France. And they were on the train from Monday until the following Saturday night. And they ended up in the same village. And unfortunately, they came and took this family away to an internment camp. And what happened is that after a while, the older son, who was a little boy, developed pneumonia. And he was put into a local hospital. And the French who were running the internment camp allowed the parents to visit their child once a week. There were obviously no antibiotics at the time, and it was a long period of time that the child was in the hospital. And once a week, the parents were permitted to visit him, but not the younger child. They left the younger child in the camp as a hostage. And this went on week after week. And one day, the younger child had an idea and said to his father, "Papa, why don't I escape and climb over the fence or under the fence while you are at the hospital, and let's run away with my big brother?" The father was so shocked that the child would dare to express an idea and suggest an idea on his own when children were seen and not heard in those days, that he slapped him across the face when he suggested that.
Or maybe he thought it was too dangerous or something might happen.
Also,
He
yes.
said that he thinks his father was shocked that he would just speak up because he wasn't accustomed to doing that. That was his interpretation.
Just got to read it.
Nevertheless, a week later, the father approached him and said, "We are going to the hospital today to visit your older brother, and we want you to climb over the fence or under the fence and meet us at such and such a time, at such and such a place. We're going to smuggle your brother out of the hospital, and we are going to run away." And that's what happened. They ran away. They were refugees. They literally had the clothes on their bodies and nothing else. And they ran away and they fled. And they fled to the nearby town where there was a Jewish family who lived there. And they said, "What should we do? We are with our clothes on our backs and nothing more, with no papers. Where should we go?" And he knew that my mother had connections with the police and with the mayor of the town, and that she might be able to help them. He sent them to the Slezengers, and they knew my mother and her parents because they had been on the train with them. And they showed up on Shabbos. And my grandparents and my mother were living in one room and could not obviously share the room with an extra 4 people. But my mother went to the mayor of the town. My mother was a beautiful girl who had tremendous chen. Hashem put her chen into people's eyes, which is a nes. The thing is that nobody could survive without food stamp. It wasn't food stamps, but it was food.
Like a ration. There was ration.
Yeah, ration cards. Nobody could survive without bread rations. You had to have that to survive. So my mother went to the mayor, and she gave a story that they came from Lyon. They needed to be in the country because they had a child who wasn't well, and that's why they came there. They needed to be in the countryside with fresh air. And could he possibly give them food rations, food cards? And he said to my mother, "If you can find a place for them to live, I will be happy to give the food coupons to you." So my mother said, "I will take responsibility to find them a place to live," and he gave my mother 4 coupons for the 4 family members. And my mother found them, I guess with the help of my grandfather, a place to live in the next village, a hovel, a barn. It was in a barn, but that's where they lived. And they lived there for, I think, a year and a half?
A few months.
A few months. A couple of months, for a while. For a while. They subsequently sent their older son, who was about 11, to Mosak. It's about 50 kilometers away. There was a children's home. It was pretending to be a French orphanage, but in reality, it was a Jewish couple, not religious at all, but they were Jewish tzaddikim. They took in all these Jewish refugee children and pretended that they were French orphans. And the children were not allowed to speak any German, only French, and they took care of them. And the older child was sent there, and they were living there with the younger child. And one day, and it was Friday afternoon, one of the policemen came over to my mother. My mother lived outside the village, but she was in the village on Friday afternoon, and one of the policemen came over and said, Mademoiselle Ellie, we found out the truth. You told us that they came from Lyon, but we found out that they came they escaped from a camp, from an internment camp. From the internment camp, they sent them all to Auschwitz and murdered them. That was the first step. And we are coming tonight to deport them, to pick them up.
And this was the French?
This was the French police
in
in the village.
Afternoon.
So my mother said, no, that's not true. They came from Lyon. And the policeman said to my mother, no, we know that you lied. We know the truth. We are coming tonight. So my mother was shaken. She lived about a kilometer outside the village. She came home and she said to her father, Papa, they found out. What should I do? And her father told her, Mama, you can really continue.
No, continue.
They told her to take her bike.
I had a boy's bike.
My mother had a boy's bike. Take her bike and go to the next village. And as far as I remember, the people knew that my mother didn't use her bike on Shabbos, so she had to sort of hide to get outside the village because it was Shabbos. And she sneaked out of the village and then rode to the next village and told the parents just to run away, just to flee. Unfortunately, the parents were caught and they were deported and they were murdered. But she took this young child who was about 9, the younger one, and she took him on her bike. She had a boy's bike. She took him on her bike a couple of kilometers to the train station. How many kilometers was it?
About 5, 6.
About 5, 6 kilometers on the train station. Friday night, it was Shabbos. And she took him with her to the train station. And she found the train to Mosak, and she took him with her bicycle on the train.
I had to go
Mosak.
to the restaurant Friday night.
Because she was afraid. There were many officers and Nazis at the train station, so she went into the restaurant with the boy and they ordered a drink or something so that they wouldn't look suspicious. And then they got on the train and they arrived in Mosak and they found out where this children's home was, and they got to the children's home. And my mother brought him in and said, would you keep this child? He had a brother there. He told us that when he saw his brother, they hugged. They could not communicate because he didn't know a word of French, only German. And they were told that you were not allowed to speak a word of German here. So they just hugged, but they could not communicate. Then the guy who ran the place said to him, what's your name? He said, my name is Simcha. And he said, oh, no. What is your non-Jewish name? And he said, my name is Fred. He says, we already have a Fred here. You'll be Freddie. So he says, so I became Freddie. And my mother asked if she could remain there until after Shabbos because...
Till Sunday.
Because it was a mitzvah. She was allowed to go there on Shabbos to save this child's life. But now the child was there. It's not pikuach nefesh anymore. So she only got back home on Sunday. And when she got back home, her parents were not there. And my mother was afraid that they were taken by the police. Now you continue, Mom?
Yeah. No, continue, then I'll continue.
She...
no, but my parents came back, so I asked the landlady whether was any police here. She said no, nobody was here. So I was there, so finally my parents came back. Monday morning, at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was, the dog started barking something terrible. So I said to my parents, that's the police for me. I have no doubt about it. That was the police. It really came. So there were 3 policemen, and one was the one, they came always on bicycles. That was a form of transportation. So they came, and it was also that policeman was there, the one that told me about that the people will be rearrested.
The one who warned
Yeah,
my
who
mother.
Who warned me. So he wasn't allowed to tell me, and I wasn't allowed to know. So whatever they interrogated me, and he knew I was lying. So we really had a very big secret amongst each other.
Excuse me.
Had a very big secret. So they asked me to come down to the police station. And he said, take along a sandwich, take along some bread, and this, you're going to be at the police. Police was about 4 kilometers away from where I was. I knew I wasn't going to say, but the policeman also who interrogated me was also the one who knew my secret. It was just before Yom Kippur, 1942. So finally, all day long, they threatened, they interrogated me, they threatened. But this, I had a secret with this policeman, this, I knew he wasn't allowed to tell me, and I wasn't allowed to say this. So he knew all along I was lying. Eventually they let me go.
How did you go?
Yeah, eventually they let me go. When I came home, then I was very upset. My parents weren't home. But they came home, they went to the other village. It was also a friend. I don't know, it was a terrible situation. But so now the story was, did I tell you now, 61 years later?
No.
Okay. No, we stayed in France. We fled then to Switzerland, September 1942. We fled to Switzerland. I was always thinking, who knows what happened to this boy? Maybe I brought him to his death, because I heard, while I was heard that the whole group of people were deported. So I felt very terrible. Maybe I brought him to his death. You never know, but of course I tried to do what I could do under the circumstances. It was just the right thing. But nevertheless, my conscience really bothered me quite a bit. When I was thinking of him, and I was thinking quite often about him, although I knew I did the right thing, but nevertheless, to know that I would have done such a thing was a terrible burden for me. So then we fled to Switzerland, I got married, we went to America. Just a second.
So during the rest of the war you spent in Switzerland?
The rest of the war spent in Switzerland.
And where in Switzerland
and
did
I
you
got
go?
married. Pardon?
Where in Switzerland?
First, when I was interned in a camp in Switzerland, then I was freed. I was in Lucerne.
And were you with your parents in the camp?
My mother and I, we were in one camp, yes, in Oxford, and my father was in a different camp. It was called Büren on the Aare.
Eddie, can I just ask,
Yes,
was it
sure.
very difficult for you to flee to Switzerland? Because Switzerland...
To flee to Switzerland, yes, of course.
And enter Switzerland?
Of course, illegally. It was
So
very difficult.
How did you get into Switzerland?
Well, we had to go at night over the mountain. It was where we went from. First of all, the most difficult part, I think, was the trip from the village. Then we had to get into Toulouse, to the border of France. That was the most worrisome thing, because police was all over. They took people off the train. But we were very fortunate. We had an Hungarian passport who was made out in Vichy. And in 1941, which was I may have mentioned it was the most unusual thing. My father had this brilliant idea. I guess it may have been the only passports that have been made out for Jews. In Vichy, the Hungarian passport, yeah. I still have it to this very day. I have it as a souvenir. But I don't know where was it. We fled into France.
And then how did you get from the French border into Switzerland?
That was a major thing, yeah. We had to it was not such an easy thing. We went to the border, to Anmas, and which was the border town. I spoke very well French, which was very helpful. We rented a room in the border town. Just a second. And we decided that my father and I, we would try to find out where exactly the border is and where we might go illegally at night. And we took a train, or bus, excuse me. My mother stayed at the hotel room, and my father and I, while we were looking around, we went by bus to look where we might be able to cross the border. And all of a sudden, the bus stopped, and we were in Switzerland.
The bus went into Switzerland?
Yes. This bus went straight to Switzerland without stopping at a border. Yeah. But my mother stayed at the hotel. My mother stayed at the place in Annemasse,
In France?
In France. Can you imagine? We had to go back. If my mother had been with us, we would have been saved in Switzerland. So we had to go back, the papa and I, and we went back. And then finally we had to join a group, that went at night. About 10 people went at night then to Switzerland.
You couldn't take the bus again?
Pardon?
There was no possibility you could take the bus again?
No, we were afraid because there was always police and this and that. They were searching for refugees and this. No, we were afraid. No, this was just, can you imagine, we were in Switzerland, my mother stayed, my mother. So what happened, then we finally, in Switzerland, we found somebody who had...
Do you remember crossing at night?
Yeah, sure.
Were you nervous? Was it...
Nervous wrecks,
Yeah,
we were.
I'm sure.
Nervous wrecks. The problem was, at that time, my sister lived in Switzerland. And she kept on writing, come, and then she said, don't come, they sent the people back. We had no telephone that you could call or so it was very difficult. So we went to Geneva.
You managed to get through and...
Not to Geneva, but I'm talking to Annemasse, to the border.
The border, and it was night time and you crossed the border?
Yeah. And the problem, so we had to pay, would have to pay the leader, there were about 10 people, yes. They were assembled somebody had assembled in Annemasse, that's a border town in Switzerland, yeah. And we were going to in the middle of the night. And as we went very, very quietly, my mother got a coughing spell from the nerves. No doubt you don't know. And 1 minute later, a huge dog comes, and the police screaming with a flashlight, stop or I shoot. I'll never in French, stop or I shoot. So we stopped. All was a group of people. We didn't know was it a Swiss policeman or a French, because they speak French. So till we finally saw it was a Swiss. So we threw ourselves on the ground and said, please, let us, we were so frantic. So he said, in French, I have to do my duty, So we didn't know what he meant was his duty. If he has to send us back, those few minutes were so terrible. But he was a Swiss officer, and he took us then to a Swiss police station in Switzerland. So once we were in Switzerland, we had hope now we'll be safe. And sure enough, we really were safe. They interrogated us about the guide, you know, at night, this and this and this. We didn't want to give away it either. And finally, they took us to an internment camp near Geneva.
So they didn't, thank God, they didn't deport you back to France.
We didn't know because
But there were many cases where Jews had crossed and they were deported back. Many cases.
We knew that.
At this time, can I ask you, did you ever hear about Rebecca Sternberg?
Pardon?
Did you?
No, had nothing to do with her.
But did you know that who she was? Or?
Yeah, Rebecca Sternberg.
But did you know at this time that there was a lady called?
No. Because we were independent completely.
And you didn't know about her at this time?
No, because my sister wrote us. Now come. My sister lived in Zurich. She wrote us in a, forgot what you call it, that nobody else knew this kind of...
Like a type of code?
Yeah, the code, bediuk. That this is now we could come. That's what it was. So we finally came, yeah.
And you were in internment camp near Geneva?
Yeah, near Geneva, the colonel camp near Geneva, like a few kilometers from Geneva. It was called Camp Warambay.
Talking
about Switzerland, if we fled to Switzerland.
Oh.
I
thought most of you were still talking about Simcha.
No, we will. When your mom got married, still. And how long were you in internment camp in near Geneva?
Not long. I tell you what, was very lucky. Because we were, forgot already, it was, my father was a doer, always. I told you which, yeah. So when we were in Geneva in this camp, the papa was able to arrange, forgot how this was. Oh no, we were freed. Now we were, I think there 10 days or something, there was no kosher food. So we managed, we ate porridge. So we got freed. I don't know how come.
Maybe because you had the Hungarian passports?
I forgot why we got released. People kept coming, because we have been in Switzerland already before, so this somehow we were released. So we were from the camp in Geneva, we were in Geneva.
And then did you get to meet your sister who was in...
Yeah, my sister came, yeah. She came, yes, that's right, she came, yes.
And how long hadn't you seen your sister?
No, not so long. I haven't seen her maybe a year and a half. Oh, no, we were 2.5 years in France, about 4 years or something.
Wow, and your parents?
Well, I was together with my parents.
But they hadn't seen...
They hadn't seen her either, no.
So the reunion must have been incredibly emotional.
My sister was some woman. Unusual person, I'm telling you. She was very unusual. She was a very courageous woman. Courageous person herself. She was very intelligent, very courageous. She was a very special. She was a special woman, really. Yeah.
And Ellie, do you remember? You must remember when you were reunited.
She walked. Oh no, that was when we were in another internment camp. No, first thing she came. She came to Geneva to this camp. And was allowed to go out because she spoke well French and Schweizerdeutsch and this and that. They let me go out of this camp. They let me go out for a couple of hours, but my parents were the hostages, so to say, in the camp. And then we were freed. And my father, as I said, he was a doer, so he was arranging. We were free to Geneva. He made sure there was in Geneva in a Jewish. You're looking for Russia? Maybe she's in there. She's in her room. Is that my telephone or yours?
It's mine.
I gave you mine. So my sister, she came?
She came to the internment camp.
Yeah, she came to the internment camp, yeah, with the, yeah.
And she was married.
Yeah.
Did she have any children by
Yeah,
this
she had
time?
already a baby that we haven't seen yet.
The first grandchild.
Yeah, first grandchild.
It must have been
But she was
incredibly
a
emotional.
She was a special person.
And how long did you stay in Switzerland?
I spent time from 42 to 46. In 44 I got married in Switzerland to my guy. I was married 61 years. And 60 years were bliss. You know what that means? 60 years were bliss.
And your husband, you met, from where did he come from?
Also from Vienna, from the same neighborhood, from the same school. He was 6 years older than I am, more than 6 years older. Yes, I would be very, very, very lucky, very, 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 very happy. Very, very happy. But of course, I told you, he was money crazy. So he married me for my money.
You had such a sense of humor.
What? He didn't even deny it. I had 40 Swiss francs. 40 Swiss francs in my pocket. And I said, I know why you married me, because you're money crazy. He didn't deny it. He said, that's the way I am. That's my nature. I'm just a money crazy guy. That's all there is to it.
And you lived in Switzerland?
Yeah. First, my husband had a job in Davos, in a Jewish sanatorium. It was called Etania. And he really had two brothers in Colombia, in Barranquilla. One had died, but he wanted to go after the war to Barranquilla. So he learned for him. The brothers were not religious and not observant and not kosher. So he wanted to learn for himself to shecht chickens and so, because he was very religious and he couldn't eat there at his brother. And because he had learned that, he was able to get a job in Switzerland in the Davos, because he was a Chazan and he was shochet for himself. He learned it, yes, and that's why he was able to get a job in Davos. As he got it as a sort of manager of this sanatorium. It was called Etania, but as a Austrian citizen, he wasn't really allowed to work officially, only as first. But in reality, he ran the place. So when we got married in 1944, that's where I moved also to Davos.
And how long did you stay in Switzerland?
We stayed in Switzerland till 1946. Till 1946.
And
45, the war ended.
And you stayed till 46?
Yes.
And when did you hear about the two boys?
Pardon?
When did you finally hear about the two boys that you didn't know if you had saved or...
1 second. Where did I meet him? 61 years. Here. So we moved to, yes. So what happened? I had dropped them. I told you I took them to this home. And I heard that they liquidated this place. And all these years I really felt very, very terrible. I mean, I knew I did the best I could under the circumstances. Nobody could do better what I did. But nevertheless, I was thinking quite a bit. Now, we left Switzerland, we moved on to Israel. And we moved to Jerusalem. I had some French friends that live right around the corner from me, that we played bridge with. They were friends. This lady was a very special lady. They lived in Paris, and they were, I don't remember all the details.
They were in the French underground, I think.
Yeah, he was in the French underground, but there was a special nice couple. And I went to them, come to their house, And there was an elderly gentleman and introduced him to me. Like it was very polite. He said, okay. And he said, Simcha Aaron, he said, Ellie Braun, whatever. And as he walked out, I said, what did you say his name was? She said, Simcha Aaron. I said, I know who this is. They called him back. That moment, I was sure this was his name. It wasn't Simcha at the time, his name was Freddy. But Aaron, they called him back. He was down the steps already, comes back. So I was blessed with a very good memory. So this elder man comes back. I asked him, were you born in Düsseldorf? He said, yes. I said, were you in Belgium? Yes. Were you in that crazy train that went from Belgium to France? He said, yes. I said, I am Ellie. He forgot my name. But through these 3 questions, he knew who I am. After 61 years, I met this guy.
He remembered her as the girl on the bicycle.
Because I took him, did I tell
And
you?
he remembered that you took him on the bicycle.
How could he forget?
How
He
could
was
he
11
forget?
years old. How could
But
he
he
forget?
didn't remember her name.
Yeah, but he didn't remember.
And his
my-
brother survived as well?
His brother survived.
So he overcome the pneumonia, thank God, because there was no antibiotics. Unbelievable.
61 years later, I said, I'm Ellie. That moment something opened in his brain that he forgot my name, but he didn't forget the story stuff. Now the next part of the story, he had to go, what did I say? He had to go back to Paris. No, he got married. What happened?
Oh, he married his oncologist.
Yeah.
But they didn't liquidate the so-called orphanage. That remained.
No,
It was the other one.
it wasn't. No.
It was the other orphanage in Marseille.
Yeah, whatever. So 61 years, I said, I'm Ellie. He forgot my name, but he remembered the same.
And you didn't recognize his face? Through the years?
He was 11 years old,
it
and now he
changes.
was...
And
Yeah.
wait, he owns an apartment in the next building.
This is the,
30 years.
did you
Prince
ever hear of
Five.
such a thing?
Prince
He,
7.
Yes.
in the same street?
Yes, around the corner.
So you
Past his house
must
every
probably
day.
saw each other
Never. But he lived in Paris, but he owned an apartment.
right next to your apartment,
Pardon?
right in the same street.
Yes, almost. And I passed his house every day, listen.
Unbelievable.
But he lives
you
in
know.
Paris, and he became a very, very famous musicologist, and was a violinist in the Jerusalem Symphony Orchestra right next to my house.
Which is played at the Jerusalem Theatre.
What?
They played the Jerusalem Theatre. Right over here at the theatre, at the Jerusalem Theatre. Which is right next to where you live.
Would you believe it? I
That's
never encountered him.
unbelievable.
61 years later, they said, I'm Ellie. He forgot my name, but he never forgot the story. Tell him about Vienna. You want to tell him?
And that's what saved, and you
Yes,
saved
sir.
his life.
You want
That's
to tell him the
amazing.
story about Vienna then? What he organized?
No, let's tell about Harry. Tell the story of Harry.
Oh, Harry's story
Yes.
too? Okay, that was oh, that was his story. How did Harry start? Yeah, we fled from Belgium, Vienna I told you this, to Belgium.
No, you were in France.
Yeah, just a minute. From Belgium we fled to France. And in France we fled with a woman who was highly pregnant with a little child. I told you. We helped her this and this and this and this and this and this. And one day this woman's nephew, step-nephew, whatever it was fled from a camp. He's in France, from an internment camp, and he fled. He heard that she's there. And she said she was highly pregnant already, and they had only one room and a little kid, whatever. So this guy fled from a camp. He was related to her, but she couldn't take care of, he was 18 years old. I was also 17. And how does she go with Harry? So my parents, he was also from Vienna, and he didn't have his parents. He didn't know where his parents were. He was interned in this camp, and he fled. He was alone. He came, a shirt, and his pants, with the torn pants from that barbed wire he escaped the camp. So
Torn
this
all over. All the pants were completely torn from the barbed wire.
Yeah, from this. So my mother somehow helped him, what do you call it, sewed it up a little bit. This is how he came. He was 18 and I was 17. When he was 19, I was 18, yes, sir. So my parents had terrible pity on him, and they took him in. We had only this one room. They took the Harry.
Wow.
This is the craziest thing. They took in Harvey, and we shared whatever my parents said, whatever. Did I tell you this about Rosh Hashanah?
Yes, tell him about the Rosh Hashanah. He came a few days before Rosh Hashanah, right?
Yeah, it came a few days. So my parents had terrible pity on him, and we became very friendly. My parents were, so to say, surrogate parents, so to say. And we became very friendly, Harry and I, because from Vienna, from the same neighborhood, whatever. I knew his stepmother, I knew his mother, whatever it was. So we became very close friends. Not because boy and girl, just friends, friends like cousins, very close cousins. So we were always hungry. Went Rosh Hashanah, they had a stick of minion there. We went out to the forest, and we were so hungry, and we ate, what was it, raspberries? What did I say it was?
Blueberries.
Blueberries, that's blueberries, not blueberries. We took the blueberries, Rosh Hashanah, we didn't pull them, we ate them like that. Later we felt so bad, Rosh Hashanah, but we did it, I'm just telling you. Harry and I. We became very good. My parents took care of him like an adopted, really, in every which way. And then he decided he was afraid because he was illegal. We were legal, sort of, but he was illegal, and he was afraid, so he decided. Also, we were also afraid, just us, but he decided he's gonna leave, he's gonna go maybe to the city, he was utterly alone, this Harry and I. But I tell you, we became very close. Also, my parents treated him like that, really like their own. So I didn't know what happened to, no. What he decided, he wrote to me, and I wrote him back. I was his only lifeline, you hear what I'm saying? Because his father had remarried, and they fled to Belgium. He didn't know where, what, how, what. So how did he go with Harry?
So he fled and he joined the...
Yeah, he joined that, yes. He decided, what should he do? He will join the Foreign Legion. You know what
the French Foreign Legion?
Pardon? The French Foreign Legion. Yeah, also you're familiar. So they sent him to North Africa, because it was a French colony, Algeria, and I forgot what was the other country. Forgot right now. Next to whatever it's called, I forgot right now. So they sent him. Send him to Algeria, and he wrote to me from Algeria, and I wrote him back, and I wrote him forth, and I was his only lifeline, really. Yes, for another one.
And this is during the war?
Yeah, during the war.
Was it Morocco?
Morocco.
Part of Morocco.
Yes,
there
Morocco.
was Spanish
That's
Morocco and French
That's
Morocco.
right, French Morocco.
There
That's
were Jews
Algeria.
that spoke French in Morocco.
Yes, French Morocco and Algeria. That's it. Yeah. So I was his own, and I wrote him back, and he wrote me, and I wrote me, and we liked each other an awful lot. You know, liked, not loved.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
liked. And I forgot what happened then, Esther.
And then you
I fled
climbed over the mountains to Switzerland and you lost touch with
Yeah,
him.
that's what it is. We fled to Switzerland and lost touch with him. Completely. I
You
didn't
never heard of him again.
I was wondering what in the world happened to Harry, you know? We were very fond of each other, not in love,
Yeah.
fond. Very. Meantime, I got married and I was in Switzerland and we went to America. And then we decided, I was wondering what happened to Harry. You know, we were very fond of each other. We had just such a thing. My parents, but I can't tell you what good people my parents were. So, we moved to Israel. I move to Jerusalem. Rosh Hashanah, we were members in a great synagogue. My husband liked the Chag, you know. We go to the great synagogue. I had my seat there. Next to me sits a lady. And she has her machzor and she checks where she has, you know, where the place. So I asked her, can I help you? I'm a friendly person. So I asked her. And then I asked her. She said, then I spoke to her in French. Victor said, you know, I speak English, I speak German, I speak that. So she said yes. So she opened up, so I opened up her machzor and I see the name Gelbart. So I said to her, you know, during the war I was together with a guy. His name was Harry Gelbart. I've never heard from him again. It's 60, I don't know, whatever, I can't remember, man. So many years, and it wasn't 60 at that time, it was 40, I forgot. I mean, she didn't answer, she didn't say anything. So, but I told her the story. I mean, I would have thought she would react, because it's not such a thing.
It's not such a common name either.
Yeah, it's not such a common name in Natalie Brown.
Yeah.
Okay, it could be 15 Browns, but... So I said to her, she didn't, I said, do you know who I'm talking about? She said, it's my husband. He's sitting down there, you see, in the great synagogue.
I know the great synagogue.
He's sitting down, you see this man with this, whatever, couple, whatever, kippah he's wearing. Said, so after the services, I meet my husband. I had always meet him at a certain place. And I held on to her, said, wait a minute, will come. I said, it's a come with me, we'll like to see. So, I see this woman, I walked over. Then comes a man, well-dressed, a tall, well-dressed, very good, I'm not saying good looking, but impressive looking man, like Bukovic, very, yeah.
Distinguished,
That's what I wanted. Very distinguished man, yeah, distinguished looking man. And I said to him, this woman said to me, this is my husband. I said, I'm Ellie. He had forgotten my name. But he would never forget the story that we had together.
And your parents?
Huh?
And how good your parents were to him?
My parents were left in Switzerland. Yes, of course. Yeah, my parents were. So I said, I am Ellie. He had forgotten my name, but he had never forgotten me. He said, there was only one Ellie in my life.
Wow.
He said this, there was only one Ellie in my life. Well, I would like to tell you. He came here for he lived in Strasbourg. And he looks like such a distinguished man. There is no way to tell you this emotion that we both had for each other after all these years. So my parents hadn't weren't alive anymore, but my sisters, they lived in Switzerland. And we went ever so often to Switzerland. So he asked us, when we come to Switzerland next time, we should come to live in Strasbourg. He would like us to come. So we said, yeah, we'll be in touch. Yes, please come. So the next time we went to Switzerland, we called him up. And he said, of course I want you to come. So we took a train to Strasbourg. And also he said to my husband, we should take along his talus and film and whatever we need, because he would like us to stay overnight. So my husband was a good sport, why not, you know? So when he picked us up in Strasbourg from the train station with the limousine, his limousine he had, and the first thing he took us to the Bet Knesset, to the synagogue, and he showed us proudly, he just had donated a Sefer Torah to this, in memory of his parents, I think. And that was the first thing he wanted to show us, how he proud that he became a somebody after that poor guy with the torn pants. He became a highly distinguished member of the synagogue, and we came to his house, and he didn't know what to do for us, how to treat us. And he took a tremendous liking to my husband also, because he was also from Vienna, from the same neighborhood and so. And we had a fabulous time, and he was so proud and so happy, and so was I, and my husband was also extremely pleased to meet him, and we were wined and dined.
Ellie, can I ask, when you told his wife, when you mentioned to his wife that you know, was she very emotional?
No, not at all.
How come
she was so taken aback?
Maybe she was shocked.
She was so shocked. That's what it was. She was so shocked when I said to her that she couldn't talk. She was choked up.
And it was by chance that you sat next to her?
By chance.
It was Mina Shamayim?
Sure.
It was all Mina Shamayim?
Yeah, sitting next to her, said, can I help you?
The great synagogue is a very big synagogue. There are many seats. There are many seats.
Hundreds.
That you would Dafka be sitting...
Exactly, next to her. And then the way I asked her, can I help you?
You see, because you're so helpful and you're such a good thinker, look what happened.
Yeah, and then I saw the name and she didn't answer, so I just asked her. You know, I told her the story. It was not such a simple story, but she didn't react. So I said, do you know who I'm talking about? She says, yes, it's my husband. She was so shaken up that she couldn't really answer.
And did you become close with her as well?
Yes, and I tell you what happened then. Then they came and moved to Israel from Strasbourg. And my husband also took a great liking to him. A very strong, because of me, we had such a kind of
a connection.
Yes. And my husband felt also like the Netia Hare too. And what happened? He got sick. And here in Israel, I remember, we invited him for Shabbos, and they invited us. Yes. And he became sick. and he was in the hospital. And I went to visit him. And then in the hospital also he said to me, like, he held my hand, he was on his deathbed, he said, for me there was only one Ellie. You know, it was such a, because we went through so much
together, yeah.
It wasn't a love affair or anything.
But you shared so, sure.
We went so much, meant so much to each other.
But your parents saved his life by taking him in. He had tremendous karasatov.
I remember.
With a torn...
From the stacheldraht, from the barbed wire.
Eddie, did you ever tell the story to the chairman of the shul? The chairman of the great synagogue is Asher Shapiro.
No, I don't.
And he's also from Vienna. Asher Shapiro, the chairman of the great synagogue.
I forgot. No, Asher Shapiro. I forgot about the name.
He was the chairman for many years of the great synagogue, also from Vienna.
But I'm sitting next to her in the great synagogue.
Incredible.
In the great synagogue, and then she didn't answer. She didn't. She was, I guess, so moved.
I think she was so shocked because what are the?
So I said, because she didn't react. I said, I kept on telling this. So, you know, like, I said, do you know who I'm talking about? She says, it's my husband. But when I saw him and we went out again, distinguished man, you know, to a distinguished man, well dressed.
Wow.
Well dressed, and he said, for me there was only
one Ellie.
That's what he said. On his deathbed, he said this. On his deathbed, he said it. Yes, yeah.
Ellie, I just want to thank you. I'm just going to come in as well. Ellie, I just want to say that there is only one Ellie. There really is only one Ellie.
Said to me.
Well, there is only one Ellie, and your story and your life and your experience. It's Nissim, and your parents.
My parents were very special.
But it's what Nissim, one race after another.
Yes, yeah.
And you are such a courageous, such an incredible person. It's the goodness, your goodness.
Just has to be done.
But your goodness, really, how you saved. How you went to the officials to plead for their lives?
No. It was just my father doing. My father had a tremendous influence upon me.
Well, Eddie, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
It was a great
and to say this has been the most
story.
Incredible experience. To the greatest chut, the greatest honor to meet you and to hear your story. And I am so grateful.
You make me blush.
Eddie, I'm so grateful. Yes. And there is only one Eddie. There is only one Ellie Braun.
But this is what he said now. He said for me that I will never forget it because it was so emotional.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
What was so emotional when you met Harry?